Hello everyone, and welcome to the Build Africa show, brought to you by Grand Vision Africa. I'm your host, Lee Malete, a civil engineering technologist, infrastructure professional, and founder of the Grand Vision Africa. Grand Vision Africa is a platform dedicated to advancing engineering, science, technology, and design across the African continent. The Build Africa show is where we sit down with engineers, architects, planners, scientists, technologists, contractors, entrepreneurs, policymakers, and industry leaders who are building Africa. Our mission is twofold: to showcase the remarkable work being done across the continent and to inspire the next generation of professionals by giving them access to stories, lessons, and experiences of those leading from the front. Joining us is Dlozi Mnisi, an award-winning civil engineer and a recipient of the 2024 SAICE President's Award. Dlozi serves as a construction project manager with the Gauteng Department of Human Settlements, where for more than a decade he has led the planning, design, and implementation of housing and bulk infrastructure projects that address South Africa's growing urbanization and service delivery needs. He holds a Bachelor of Technology in Civil Engineering, specializing in urban engineering, and is passionate about developing the next generation of engineering professionals. Beyond his day-to-day work, he serves on the SAICE Future Leaders Panel and the Federation of African Engineering Organizations Young Engineers Committee, where he champions young professional development across Africa. Today, we'll explore his career journey, his experiences delivering infrastructure that changes communities, his leadership within the engineering profession, and his vision for building a better Africa. Mr. Dlozi, thank you for joining us today.
No, it's a pleasure, Lee. Pleasure. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and I'm glad to join you today.
All right. Mr. Dlozi, can you please tell us a bit about yourself? Where did you grow up? What do you do? And why are you here today?
Thanks once again for inviting me, and definitely thanks to your viewers, and I hope my story will be inspiring and will definitely offer a bit of hope to the young ones and young professionals in the industry. As you mentioned, my name is Dlozi Mnisi. I'm currently working as a construction project manager, professionally registered with SAICE PMP. In terms of where I grew up, I was born and raised in a township called Letlhabile, all the way in Brits. I don't know if you're familiar with the Northwest.
Yeah, I know Brits.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where I come from. And then lived, so I completed my high school in Mabopane, which is in Pretoria. So I've got some Pretoria blood in me. So, Kedai man.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's where I then did my high school and ultimately did my university at Tshwane University of Technology, where I studied my national diploma in civil engineering. But currently working for the Gauteng Department of Human Settlements. Thanks.
All right, that's great. Tell us a bit about your upbringing. What inspired you in life, and especially what inspired you to become an engineer?
That's actually a deep question. What inspired me in life? I was actually a quite a reserved kid. I think growing up. And in my early years, I'm now trying to think of the time when I was in primary. When I look at the kids now, I would say maybe even adults, being inspired by always just being on your phone. Back then, we didn't have phones, so you could only have like TV. And for me, I was that kid who was the couch potato. I used to watch a lot of TV, cartoons, and that's what kept me going as a young kid, and obviously playing around with my friends in the streets, and that for me, I think I had an easy outlook on life. I never was, I would say, a problem, I think, to my parents. And that helped me to to then be able to path what you call it, chart the way for myself through, I would say, the TV space, you know. And that's how I got inspired about the world that's out there. You can imagine growing up in a township, there isn't a lot that you can then say you aspire to, because the opportunities that you have are so limited. So because of my exposure to that space, I then saw and aspired to be a better person, better person within my community as well, to bring a lot of change, because I think I'm more of a compassionate person. And my family was a big family. I in terms of from my mom's side, I think my grandmother, there's a lot of cousins that I have. So I've always had that type of heart, and that was inspired by my mom. So I've just been a guy who's compassionate, wanted to change the world, make the world a better place, and care and love for people. So ultimately that, and I think it got me to my career now, to then become a civil engineer. And that was because of my uncle who was in construction, and also a cousin of mine who's an architect. But at school, there's always that guy you look up to. And you're like, that guy is good in his marks, he can perform. And because you like and look up to that person, then, because I think the guy was a grade ahead of me, we're still good friends now, and he said he wanted to do civil engineering. I was like, yeah, I think that's. So I asked him, what do you do as a civil engineer? And then he told me, and I was inspired. I was like, I like that. Fortunately, he changed and did like mining engineering, and I was so angry at him. But look, we're friends now still, but I'm enjoying the profession. But ultimately, it's been more technical. So I think the space of construction, that's where I've liked, and infrastructure development, that's my passion. Yeah.
Okay, that's quite inspiring. Now tell us about your journey at varsity. How was that in engineering school?
It was very difficult. I must say, it was very difficult. I think within my journey, I think something that I don't really touch a lot is my days at, because I went to college before, South College, where I did my ends. So a lot of people know them as the native ends. I think I finished at N6, and I think that obviously for me to start there, just obviously because of your audience, I would like to then just explain a bit there. It was because I applied late at varsity. Because I applied late, guess what? There's no space. Right? So because, and you are caught up into the space of saying, I'm studying in your matric year or even your grade 11, you don't apply. Come January, you want to go apply. I think probably we were, or 2 years after me, that's when the space of no walk-ins. I think you've seen it in a lot of
universities. I've seen it, yeah.
No walk-ins, yeah. So we were part of the generation that actually walked in. And it was a lot. At university, like it would be just correctly 14 94, when you see on TV. So yeah, I went in, applied. Fortunately, was like told, look, there's no space. I went to college, and I want to start at that space to say it was a great eye-opening moment for me, where I did my civil engineering, obviously in the native level, because it was more technical. So I now did a lot of drawing, practical drawing, where I now started seeing myself drawing like timber roofs, seeing how things work practically, and I appreciated that space. It was new because, remember, like I said, I've always just been a kid who's been indoors, right? So I think also with the space of the people, I found a lot of young people who are also finding themselves, looking in terms of saying what is out there, in industry, and what do we looking forward to. There was a lot of space of, I think I ended up becoming friends with a lot of lectures at campus. I wouldn't say the curriculum was not hectic. It wasn't difficult for me. Maybe it was because of the level, but I found myself having to just be that guy who was out there. I think it's part of my character. But finding out a lot of information, what to do, what not to do, how to pass, how to help the other guys, And then finally I then registered on time, and then I was accepted at TUT for civil engineering. national diploma. And then in that, I think that's now where, when you were here, now you are like, ish, okay. Yeah. Now it started to become challenging. But I think also the space of community, when you're students and you find friends who you guys can relate in terms of the profession, or rather your challenges become academic. I found myself having to actually rely on a lot of relationships that I've built, but also creating a social space, for myself. I think a lot of ourselves as young people, we find more out about ourselves in university because we get to explore so many things. You start understanding what's happening in terms of an environment. You grew up in a township, you come into the space. Pretoria on its own, I think personally I had not been a frequenter of Pretoria town because I stayed in a township, and so now I'm in town, I'm staying at a residence here, and then I'm staying it was a guy's residence. So there was a lot of things that we knew. You're sharing a space. By the grace of God, I've always stayed in my own room, so that was beautiful. But in terms of academics, we had a lot of strong lectures. Now, obviously, who are no longer. I think probably 40% or 50% are no longer there when I go visit the institution. But they were quite strong. In the field, engineering field, they were quite strong. They were quite prominent. They were known. If you mention their name anywhere, anybody, they've written books, So those people inspired you to just say, while they were hard on you, I think later on you got to appreciate that these people were industry giants. They are not just lecturers, but they are people who actually practiced and were considered, profound within their peers. So for me, I think that journey, look, I got to find myself on a lot of other things. But I really enjoyed that journey, and I wouldn't trade it off for anything. Thanks.
And speaking specifically about TUT, I have a lot of colleagues alumni that used to study there, and they used to tell me how difficult it was. So, what would be your advice to current students that are studying, whether it's at TUT or at CUT, where I attended my undergrad for civil engineering? What would be your advice to them in order to succeed firstly as a student, and also as a future professional? What are the things what are the tips that you can give them?
Yeah, no, look, I think one of in studying anything, I've learned a new principle in my life, and that is the reason we don't achieve maximum of the things we want to achieve at times is because we leave things out late to be done late, and
procrastination.
Procrastination and also just saying it's fine, I've done it once, it's fine. Because I see procrastination, but just to say I've done it once and I'm fine. Unfortunately, what it does is, I don't know if you've ever gone through this. You find that a chapter has maybe 5 topics that it covers, right? And then you go into an exam room because you did or a test, because you did 4 examples or 4 scenarios, right, towards those topics. You find that you still get something wrong as you're trying to solve whatever problem that you're having. And now you ask yourself, but why is it that I couldn't solve it? And I think it's because we limit ourselves in terms of the time we start to receive the knowledge or the information, and until the time we actually go and apply it, So there is a moment where it's called the practice time, where you need to do so many iterations. Now we speak of iterations, or meaning examples, putting in, now you use a 5 and not a 6. The examples had one scenario. Now you explore other questions and all those things, so that you actually understand the concepts that are there in whatever learnings that you're going through. It can be a structural engineering, it can be water engineering, transportation, or maybe in other spaces. But it's more of them saying, once you start opening up the lecture notes on that particular topic, find as many examples as you can to solve, but also read as much material that you can on those particular topics to get yourself to understand what it's fully about, so that when you are even tested, you can at least be able to give your own input, on it. And also I think I don't know obviously how much technology now is being used by young people within the universities. I'd say, use as much technology as you can. There's so much out there that you can use to practice. Ask your lectures. One thing that I think we take for granted. I think throughout my journey of academics, I've always probably been known as a teacher's pet. Just to ask the questions. Ask the questions, have the problem, solve it, give it to... Because what I think that it does is even lectures would even end up giving you the solutions before, or after. They're like, no, because I can see your interest in this topic. So I think that's the biggest thing that young students in universities should actually aspire to do. Make the lectures your mentors, because often enough we see lectures as people who they just want assignments, they just want us to just tests and all those things. But one of my lectures said something quite profound, and I only read this, I think, in one of the articles that as alumni we receive of lectures. So I think he had done something great in whatever he was doing, and when they asked him about what he thinks about the industry, but also the students that he lectures, and then he said that one thing that he has done when he perceives students is that he perceives students as colleagues. And that thing has been like, it's revolutionized my mind. It's like I got an epiphany of understanding what it means. Because if you actually understand that as a student, you are a colleague to your lecturer, you'll then hold yourself differently, because tomorrow in our industry, your lecturer can become somebody who tomorrow, when you are either doing your masters, you can go back and consult with them, but when you consult with them, you are either a student, or they are the ones who is your supervisor, right? Then the other one comes in where now they can easily become a consultant, and you can be a client, or they can be a client and you can be a consultant, or you can ask them to come and maybe speak at your work event or whatever. So now that moment of where you were the students, now you guys are sitting on the same table, just across each other, or sometimes in the same table, to then discuss issues of industry. So I think for students, the biggest thing is to see yourself as a professional already, uphold yourself at that level, and I think what you'll then see is things will become much more clearer. You'll understand why your lecturer expects more of you. You'll understand why you need to go further in the industry in terms of how you do the work. So that's what I'd probably say when it comes to that. Thank
you. Last question about the university space. We engage a lot with students, especially in SAICE. Many of the student chapter members, they ask a lot of questions about employment. How do they find jobs? What can they do? What skills can they sort of learn to improve their chances of employment? What advice can you give them? Generally, students and some of them that we see in the student chapters, SAICE student chapters. For those who don't know,
what is SAICE student chapter?
Go ahead. Let us know. The expert himself.
Yeah. So what I'd say, firstly, do your work at school, right? If you're a student, make sure that's priority number one. Priority number one: do your work at school, pass well, right? And then secondly, I think this question just came to mind now. Maybe I'll ask you, what color is the Coca-Cola logo? What colors do they use?
Red.
Okay.
Red, black, white.
That's good, right? What about Pepsi?
Yellow, blue, I think. Yeah, blue. Yellow and blue, yeah.
Blue. When last did you have a Coke?
I actually had one yesterday.
When last did you go to Pepsi?
It's been a while.
Right? But you know the brand, right? You know the color.
Yeah.
Because it's been in your face, right? You might not have used the service, but you know about it. So what I'm getting to now is to answer the question of what do students need to do. First and foremost, students within a space of looking for work, you need to be visible. You need to stand out, understand why and how to stand out. The two organizations we just spoke about, within a marketing concept, they use primary colors within their marketing space, right? That's why those colors, red, black, and white, blue, and yellow, they stand out to us. So the question is the psychology of people who will have to hire you. What do you think they are looking for? Because they're probably looking for somebody to become a self-driven person. They're probably looking for somebody who's confident. They're looking for somebody who's outspoken. They're looking for somebody who can do the work, right? So if you can tick those boxes yourself to then say, what is the other person looking for? And then what is it that I can offer, right? And also, what is it that I'm looking for? You know, a lot of young graduates, I've gone through this challenge myself. When you come out of university, you merely have touched the surface of what is in the industry. The industry itself has specializations. It can be anything. Even medicine has so many specializations. Finance has so many specializations. You find that the students that come out don't even know the different specializations that are there, have never studied it, because they've never internalized what they actually want. They can't even articulate properly the information that the positions that they want and how they want it. You might not have the experience, right, in the field, but you will then have at least the knowledge, theoretically speaking, that you can source online. Right, you can be on any website. It'll tell you what a civil engineer who's in the space does and what. There's types of interviews, you know, us having to sit like this and somebody having to say, okay, Dlozi, you say you are this person. What do you do? Okay, there's platforms like LinkedIn. Reach out to somebody. Hey, this is me. This is what I'm doing, and then I would like to know more about yourself. Can we just have a call, just 10 minutes, and then I just want to pick your brain on this thing. That's you being visible. I don't need to know you, but you just need to know that the person who is looking for you to offer you the opportunity knows that you're there. And you know, I've seen. I'll make an example with somebody. There was a student that I met a few years ago, and at a competition. I've recently, and I think he came second in that. I've recently seen him. I think you've also seen him. He does. He explains concepts within engineering, just like this, just a recording, probably looks at it online or checks it and say, oh, there's an easy concept. You know, why does the light bulb do what it does? Or how does it work? Or recently I think I saw why he was talking about the toilet. You know, how water, you know, when you flush, it doesn't go out all of it and all those things. And the gases that it's preventing and the likes. And I was like, oh, this kid is doing something interesting, considering where he comes from. And now he is, but I don't have to know him, but I know of his work, right? And now imagine if I were to have his CV on my desk, you know, as a potential employer. I'd say no. I've seen this person is interested and passionate about the industry. So those type of things. Then you start to, now we talk about professionalization of the industry. You know, that space speaks about people who protect the industry, protect the integrity of it. So those are the type of advices that I'd give to somebody who's still a student, who's then saying, but what do I do? How do I know? How do I do what I need to do? Now people have got phones, search content, talk about, have a blog, something that's out there to show that you are actually interested in the industry. You will get something.
Thank you. Tell us about your what do you do, and specifically what led you to be in that space, specifically in public sector.
No, thank you. Well, what I do, I'm a construction project manager. I manage public infrastructure projects, specifically township formalization, low-cost housing, for the Gauteng Department of Human Settlements, from concept until closeout of the projects. One community, there's different communities that we have helped build as the project manager on the projects. I've been with the organization for over a decade already, so unfortunately it's not such a young, I might look young but not young yet. So how did I get into the space? I was fortunate and blessed to receive a scholarship from the National Department of Human Settlements, as one of the selected candidates from Gauteng. I think we were about 5 people that were selected for the scholarship, and through that, having to receive that, I then worked for an entity called the Independent Development Trust. I then worked as a project manager, and then I worked for a electrical engineering firm, where also I was based on site as an RE for their project, as it was a multidisciplinary project, and they were the principal consultants on it. So we worked. Something that I always, am excited about is when people pass Kosimampuru, the famous prison there, CIMEX prison. I'm like, yeah, that's me there. In terms of the project, just some refurbishment, though, not everything.
Okay.
I just know
Okay.
some prisons, not some prisons. Yeah. So then I got exposed obviously to site work. I did a bit of I worked also for an architectural firm, where I did a bit of drafting work there and project management as well. And then ultimately I found myself at the Gauteng Department of Human Settlements, where they said, Chief, you've been in the streets for too long, come here.
Come home.
Come home. So I've been there with them since the time. I found myself having to enjoy the space, because I still remember the speech that we got. I think it was one of the DG would be the Deputy Director General of the National Department back then. And something that he said, as we were obviously being orientated through the scholarship program, was to say, look, we are building a country. And building a country means we have to also build resources. And the resources, therefore, then ultimately becomes the human personnel. And then the personnel ultimately becomes yourselves, which is us, who are the young professionals who then government says it needs to capacitate itself. And then we are part of that program, that comes in to then say, come and help and assist the states. And I've taken those words to heart since then, where I had to then ask myself, each time I've got a lot of you work in the private space, I've got a lot of guys who work in the private space who I'm friends with. Every time they ask me, when are you coming? I'm like, guys, if I come there, what's going to happen to the public sector? Because ultimately you're going to find people who can't do the work, who don't know what to do, who don't know how to look at a plan, who don't know what questions to ask. When we talk about the state not being capacitated, ultimately I'll be asking the questions tomorrow to say, why is it that the guy on the other side is not capacitated enough, to be understanding the work that needs to happen. So that's what has, I would say, led me to stay in the space. But also I noticed that I'm passionate much about project management. And it's a space that I do well. I work well with people. I enjoy it. And then seeing projects running from beginning till end, where you are managing the stresses. A lot of our projects fail because of stakeholder management, not understanding the different things that needs to happen, not understanding your responsibilities as a project manager, or even the people that are working on the project, educating them. Because I believe as someone who is leading, you must be able to educate the team to say, guys, I see what you're doing is in this way, change it, and in this way, or rather try this way. And then I've seen in my space, I've excelled in it, I've loved it, I enjoy it. I don't think I'd be the best guy behind a design, a desk there and saying, I'm designing something. But I'm more strong when it comes to people management, and that's a space that I've found. I've managed the technicality of our space very well. So yeah, that's what I can say. Thanks.
What would you say to people in the private sector that have maybe a distorted opinion of public sector, that is not welcoming to professionals, especially very highly technical professionals? What would you say to those people?
I'd say that there's look, it's not something that's not there, right? It is there, but I'd say the space is changing, and you can see it by already what policies that government is trying to implement, that being professionalizing the public sector, but also the engineering space. You know, you've seen within the Engineering Council of South Africa, where they talk about the identification of engineering work. You've seen within also the South African Council of Project Managers, when they speak about professionalizing the space, where you have a project manager who needs to be professionally registered, both from the client and also from the consultants. So it means that you will know we are moving away from having I would say public sector professionals, or rather public sector employees who are not equipped with the skill, right, or even the knowledge, or even the accreditation, that is required to actually participate and do work in that space. So I think, look, a lot of work happens as well in municipalities. I think what needs to happen is institutions like MISA, they need to ramp up their space, their development programs, or assisting municipalities to actually make sure that they capacitate or even appoint people who are knowledgeable, certified, and can do the work, and also having to have municipal engineers to actually understand the work that ultimately happens within municipalities from an infrastructure perspective. You must have strong engineering units within the municipalities. And then I think in that way, even from a political space, where we even start recognizing, because one of the debates that have happened is that why is it that, the only, and when I say only, the only department that is seen to want to have a professional is the medical space. Why is the Department of Health must have a doctor? When we were talking about the challenges that we're having with ESCOM and electricity challenges, load shedding, why was it such a hoo-ha that we needed? No, we have somebody who's equipped in the space, is an engineer and the likes. Why was it not raising that space? The political parties themselves, they have these people who can become ultimately ministers. You don't have to just say it must be a DG or it must be an HOD who must be the professional in that space, because ultimately what ends up, I call it the blind side effect. And the blind side effect in what context? So when you drive, what do you expect? You expect that you must have your mirrors, right? Working. Both your side mirrors and the one for your reverse, right? Now, because you have those mirrors, you can be able to see the blind spot.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But now, imagine you don't have those mirrors. You can't see your blind spots, right? Same as in any industry. Let's just use our own industry because it'll make more sense. If you don't have somebody who understands, and I'm talking at a very, very senior level, at a head of department or minister, who doesn't understand the process that is there involved in curing concrete, they will tell a community that you can have a structure built in incorrect times. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No,
it's a simple thing.
Important.
But it's a blind spot, you end up committing to things that you can't do, right? So that's the biggest thing for me, that I believe that in the finance space, in the law space, justice space, there's people who are supposed, even when we're talking about social development, who must stay there, be there, and do the work because they're professionals. And that's what we need to advocate for as the practitioners in the space, so that ultimately, even from a political space, it is seen that we must now make sure that the people who are within, they call them a constituent, within our constituency, we need to look for the best people who can ultimately do the work for us to be able to ultimately deliver services to our people. Then all we'll be talking about is just the numbers, to say, how okay, you do it this way, I could have done it this way, or you did it this way, but not really the work being done. The work will be done, and that's, for me, is my biggest thing about having to say to all the professionals in our industry, the wheels are turning, They might be slow, but we'll get there.
Yeah, that's very encouraging. As someone who's passionate about development of the country myself, I think about such things a lot to say, what would like invite me as a professional to go into into the public sector. Certain conditions need to be there. So one of the things that I like also is the policy change that's happening, and I'll be interested to hear more about that. The other thing that I wanted to ask is in terms of the ethics in public sector. What has been your experience in terms of challenges as far as that is concerned? Because we know that our professionals are under a lot of pressure, political pressure, to not necessarily do things according to the contract or according to what is required on the drawings, and there's a lot of pressure. We see it every day on the news. What is your comment on that? And as a professional in the public sector, how have you managed and to still build such a successful career up until now?
Yeah, no, thank you. I think that ethical awareness as any professional is very important. I would like to also maybe quote a statement that I heard one of the gentlemen that I know, and I think I listened to the gentleman when I was still up and coming in the industry. And then he was actually a president of a very senior organization within the engineering space. So he was a director and CEO as well of a big company. And he said something quite profound. And he said, as professionals, especially the ones who are making the noise about corruption and unethical behavior, we must always remember that the principle of unethical behavior goes both ways. There must be the corruptor and the corruptee. It's never just the corruptee only, right? Or the corruptor only, So we must be very, very, very careful in terms of how we define the narrative of who's corrupt and who's not, right? Because of how it's all structured, what we find ourselves is in the public sector, because of the power that exists from either the political space, the technical space, the management space, right, even the procurement space ultimately. And also, I would even take it further to say currently the challenge that we're having, the community space, right, which involves also business, what we call business forums.
Yeah.
Or illegitimate business forums, if I may just say that where you find people having to understand that they hold a particular power, right? Then you find people abusing that power and not understanding the ultimate cause or effect of them abusing their power, right? Because it's also that thing that I'm talking about when I'm talking about the blind spots. Because one, you don't love your country. You don't love the infrastructure that's being developed. You don't actually see the vision that ultimately the resources that are being poured in the infrastructure or the service that you're delivering. Then you ultimately can see yourself as somebody who can compromise their morals, compromise their ethics, Personally, I would say for me, I've always found myself to be somebody who, because I'm straightforward and my speaking to a lot of people, I don't come across as the best guy you can then say, no, you know what, let's do something, I'll because I think because I also know which office is responsible for what, I will direct you to the office you need to speak to, I'm not the office that you need to speak to, so therefore I'm just saying in terms of the scenarios I've been through.
Yeah.
Where it's like, hey, you don't know what's happening here. I'm like, yeah, there's a guys at this place. You can go talk to them. I haven't seen any. I don't even look at tenders, that go out. From my department. I'll only know if there's work that's happening that we're like, oh, we've spoken to supply chain. They must do something. But I've never even seen them. Unless it was a thing where I sat on a committee for something to ask to do something. I'm like, I've seen it, but it ends there. So ultimately, for me, I think Lee. If and I would like to say this to all young people, I grew up in a township like I said, call it Tlhabile, right? Down Township, the school I went to, my sister went to. I think my sister is close to 50 years, closely now. And she was probably part of the first people that went to that school. That school is still there. I don't know which government built that school, but that school is still there. And my nieces still go to that school. It's still standing. But why is it that the infrastructure that we are building at this point now is not standing? Why are our projects not being completed? And if you don't understand the value chain of, and that's why I speak about investment, investment that probably the state has invested in me as an individual. I'm not saying they had to. Even if they had to, it's okay because I'm a South African citizen. But the investment that they put in from the day I was born, because I wasn't born in a private hospital, until today, how much of it is it that for me tomorrow then I will take if I have to go build an RDP house for somebody and then I cheat the person? It might have been a different minister when I was Minister of Health, Minister of Education when I went to my primary school, Minister of Higher Education when I went to university, Minister of now I'm paying SARS now. It might have been a different one. But if the value chain, I compromise it by the time where I have to offer a service, then what type of ethical behavior am I showing? When they say you bite the hand that feeds you, because it feeds you and you can feed the upcoming people. So we must learn to say, who are the people who are coming after me? And by my actions doing what I'm doing now, bypassing the plans, making sure that doing things for favors for people that are unethical, people who are undeserving, it's a value chain thing, right? So we need to think about the long-term effects of the actions that we have. And then if we are part of the problem, we need to change. If we are part of the problem, we need to start speaking a different message to say, we can't say that, no, because X did it, now I need to do it as Y. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. You are just, tomorrow you will be complaining. You will be complaining, to say somebody, your niece is or your nephew or your grandkids are not receiving the things that they're supposed to receive in their area. And I will tell you, no, the Y in that side of town did what you're doing.
Yeah.
You understand? So I for me, that's probably how I can deal with the moral and ethical issues that we're facing in our industry. And I think we need to all reflect and just be the better man, bigger man, and look to build our nation as it's built for us to get here. People sacrificed to be where we are now, so let's not put their efforts in vain.
Yeah, I love that. At the crux of it, I believe, in support of what you're saying, patriotism is so critical. When you have a society of patriotic young people that understand the sacrifices of their forefathers, you're already standing on the shoulders of giants. You just continue the legacy, and then hopefully the young people will continue to build. So I agree with that. Okay, so moving on, as we're about to close, I wanna ask you, like, what do you see as how do you see, or where do you see the engineering profession heading in the next decade? Where do you think it's headed to in South Africa?
Yeah, thanks. I think we have some of the best engineers in the world. Go to Saudi, you'll find us. Go to Dubai, you'll find us. Go to Ireland, you'll find us. Go to the UK, you'll find us. Go to China, you'll find us. And go to South Africa and Africa as it is, you'll find a lot of our companies, with the professionals from South Africa. So I think from a skills perspective, I don't think we'll have a challenge, right? The biggest challenge rather that we probably will have, I would say, young engineers having to hone in on specialization, right? You look at the type of projects that we're having, they tend to become, South Africa, we tend to be more repetitive, right? It's not like exploratory work. We don't get the investments that we need to get, but I think the biggest thing that we must focus on is the space of specialization. And that's what I can say to all young people, to say, in the future, make sure you know how to specialize. Because finding a niche to specialize in makes you somebody who is worthy to stay in the industry. We can get everybody we want. We can get a plumber, a plaster. When you're doing in plastering, there's this type of plaster that is there. I forgot what it's called. But yeah. So that be that engineer or that professional who goes the extra mile in the work that they do. Because a lot of things are generic now. The training we are getting, it's generic, yes. But up your level. Because what it does, Lee, that's a lot of young people, or even actually young professionals, we're not seeing, is that if you decide to go a space of specialization or in-depth studying of your field, what you do is you allow the industry to actually grow, to explore new opportunities, to explore new avenues where it's able then to say, okay, here's a specialty space, let's grow it. Because if nobody ever stays in there, then what ends up happening is we start doing the whole same thing. We start fighting for tenders, being 50 of us or 100 at times for the same tender. Be that guy who can learn to submit, even if it's just one thing. Do just one thing, and then you do it so well, even the private markets, they end up looking for you. Because and these things have been done, right, in other countries. You can look at let's take China, or let's take Dubai. If you were to look at a challenge, especially look at the climate issues that we're having, if you look at, okay, how did they solve it, and how are they solving it in this particular space of the world, and then you then say, okay, let me study it. So I will give you an example of and I'll tell you why I'm doing this. A friend of mine. So what he did is, when he started at the company that he studied to work in, he was interested in structures, right? And then because he was in that space, he then started to, before Revit was in high demand, he started to actually study that, right? Study using the software. Started to use the software, right? And then come the time when now he was at least 70% good at it, he put it on his CV. Guess what? You couldn't touch him. You can't even touch him even today, because he saw a market, he saw a niche within the space, and then said, you know what, let me hone in my own time, let me make sure I study the space, and then after that, once the market responds to you, because the market responds to you, you don't respond to the market. That's how you lead in an industry. The market must respond to you and say, hey, we want you because you say you can do this thing, right? So for me, the engineering space within South Africa definitely is going to grow, definitely is there. I'm confident that as any engineer who studied in this space, you'll never struggle. But for you to become, go an extra mile, make sure that you find a space you can say, here, I'm going to go do a different route. And then that is not around in the country. Ultimately, now we live in a world where you can be called in Kenya, you can be called in Saudi, you can be called, so you can still go there, and then make sure you register professionally. That's another thing we didn't talk about. That registering professionally, what it does, it opens doors for you to then ultimately say you can be competitive. There's a story I could tell you about financial security that you get with professional registration, and I laughed when I was sitting with other professionals, and they were saying something, and I was like, wow, I didn't know I need to chase professional registration as early, and we don't speak about it enough. You must chase it, like after you finish your first qualification, even before, actually, you must know of the organization you want to register with. If it's a project management, if it's engineering, if it's quantity surveying, chase it, because once you get it, Lee, nobody can touch you, my friend. Nobody can touch you, because you speak with authority in industry. You understand that you are cooked before you go for even an interview, and you are cooked to think differently. You mustn't now just become that's why ethical behavior is so important for professionals, because the understanding is we take you as a professional that you're gonna go and practice ethical behavior. You are the one who's going to lead infrastructure development. You are the one who's going to save life out there. So it's very important for our young professionals to say, first, I need to make sure that I register professionally so that I can also stand on my 2 feet. I found that after I registered that now you become you even walk differently.
Your words carry a different type of weight now.
Yeah. Big time.
No, great stuff, great stuff. Okay, for our last 5 minutes, we're gonna do something that I call quick fire questions.
Yeah.
The first thing that comes to your mind can be a sentence, it can be a word, but try to keep it as short as possible. Yeah?
Short.
I think to you, the relevant ones will be like 4 of them, but yeah, let's go for it. What's your favorite engineering project?
The Gauteng.
Okay. What's your favorite software or tool?
MS Projects.
Okay, as a project manager.
Yeah. 101. 101.
101, yeah. What's your biggest career lesson in one sentence?
Relationships make or break you.
Deep. One book or resource every engineer should read.
The Psychology of Money.
Nice. I've read that in varsity. That's dope.
Yeah.
Okay, one engineer or leader you admire.
I would say Robert Sobukwe.
Robert Sobukwe, beautiful. Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Okay. That was the last one.
Yeah.
So any closing remarks or any advice that you'd like to give to your younger self, quote unquote, young people in our country?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is the people you aspire to be, they've been where you are. So you are not different to them. You can make it. All you just have to do is take yourself seriously. Wake up with intention, do things with intention. And failure in its worst form, is not the end of you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dlozi. We look forward to seeing your success out there. And thank you for your time and thank you for the gems that you have dropped to the masses. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot to all the young people and everybody listening. It was a pleasure being here. And I think between me and you, we know round 2, right?
Yeah, of course, definitely. This was the appetizer.
Thank you, man. Thank you.